There is a moment in every person's life when they finally see the truth they've been avoiding. And sometimes that truth hits you so hard that it rearranges everything you thought you understood about love, connection, and your own worth. What if I told you that the very thing you're chasing is running because you're chasing it? What if the validation you think you need from someone else is actually the very thing keeping you invisible to them? Stay with me, because once you understand this, once you truly absorb it, your entire approach to relationships will transform permanently. Most people never discover the blind spots that sabotage their emotional life. They repeat the same patterns, feel the same disappointments, and assume it's fate. It's not, it's psychology, and the moment you start understanding your own emotional wiring, the patterns begin to reveal themselves. The distance someone gives you, the silence they offer, the mixed signals you receive, they're not random. They are reflections of a deeper dynamic you've never been taught to decode. If you feel like you're always the one giving, always the one trying, always the one caring more than the other person does, then you're in the right place. There's nothing wrong with your heart. There's nothing weak about your sensitivity, but there is something you must unlearn because your emotional instinct is operating on old programming. This video is going to challenge that programming. It's going to expose the subtle behaviors that make someone pull away, and the exact shift that makes them lean in again. So don't move, don't skip, don't click away, because by the time we finish, you will not only understand what is happening, you will finally know what to do about it. And once you know, you'll never go back to the old version of yourself again. Let me take you deeper into this, because most men completely misunderstand what this attraction truly is. When I say younger women are drawn to a man whose masculinity is no longer fragile, I'm not talking about some exaggerated version of dominance or the outdated idea of being alpha. I'm talking about a psychological shift that happens within a man when he finally stops performing, stops proving, and stops pretending. It's the moment he transitions from reacting to life to being rooted in it, and this shift is not loud. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, almost invisible, yet women feel it instantly, especially younger women, because the contrast is so sharp. Think about it. Most young men live in a state of emotional turbulence. They seek validation like oxygen. They chase approval because they haven't built internal value yet. They get triggered by small things, they take everything personally, they explode, they withdraw, they spiral. And women, especially younger women, experience this constantly. They grow used to men whose emotions control them rather than men who control their emotions. So, when a woman meets a man who has outgrown that stage, a man who doesn't crumble at rejection or rush into intensity or drown in insecurity, she feels something rare. It's not a surface attraction, it's a nervous system response. Her body feels safer, her mind feels calmer, and her energy naturally gravitates toward his. Not because he's older, but because he's anchored. A man with non-fragile masculinity has a different rhythm. He moves slower, but with intention. He speaks less, but every word has weight. He doesn't need constant reassurance because he has lived through enough loss, failure, and transformation to understand that no external validation can define him. This is what younger women sense, a kind of emotional gravity, a groundedness that cannot be faked. And the irony is, the man himself rarely notices it. He thinks he's just calmer now, or less reactive, but that calm is not just personality, it's mastery. And mastery is magnetic. Women today are emotionally overstimulated. Social media, dating culture, constant mixed signals. It's chaos. Younger women are surrounded by men who compete for attention but lack depth. They see confidence that is actually insecurity wearing a mask. They hear loudness mistaken for strength, and they witness emotional impulsiveness disguised as passion. So, when a man arrives in her world who doesn't play these games, who doesn't need to win, who doesn't rush for intimacy or overcompensate with ego, it disrupts her entire understanding of attraction. She becomes curious, then drawn, then invested, and she doesn't even fully understand why. But you do. It's the absence of fragility. Let's dig deeper. True masculinity that is solid, not brittle, comes from experience, not age. It comes from self-awareness, not dominance. It comes from integrity, not aggression. A man who has healed parts of himself no longer reacts from old wounds. He doesn't need to be right all the time because his self-worth isn't threatened by disagreement. He doesn't need attention from multiple women because he doesn't need female validation to feel masculine. He doesn't need to rush into intimacy because he understands that connection is not built through urgency, but through presence. And when a younger woman encounters this level of emotional maturity, she feels something she has never felt before: ease. The pressure to perform disappears. She doesn't feel judged, controlled, or manipulated. She feels seen. She feels accepted. She feels safe in the presence of a man whose identity isn't determined by her reactions. The non-fragile masculine man also brings something else: stability without stagnation. He is steady but not boring, calm but not passive. He doesn't chase drama, but he also doesn't run from emotional truth. He can hold space for her intensity without being swallowed by it. He can listen without fearing emotional closeness. He can disagree without becoming defensive. Younger women respond to this because it reflects emotional leadership, something very few men her age possess. And this is where the sexual attraction forms, not from age, not from experience, but from emotional authority. Not controlling her, but controlling himself, not dominating her, but regulating his own impulses. That level of internal discipline creates a presence that feels powerful without being forceful. And presence is the purest form of sexual energy a man can carry. Remember this: a fragile man seeks external power, a solid man radiates internal power. And internal power is the kind of masculinity younger women notice before they notice anything else. A man whose masculinity is no longer fragile doesn't try to impress, he simply is asterisk. And that is the kind of man a younger woman remembers long after he leaves the room. So the truth is simple: your age is not the attraction, your evolution is. When we talk about emotional control being sexually magnetic, most people misunderstand what that actually means. They think emotional control is about being cold, distant, or detached. They assume it means suppressing feelings or refusing to show vulnerability. But that's not emotional control. That's emotional avoidance, and emotional avoidance doesn't attract anyone. It pushes people away. What younger women are drawn to is a man whose emotions don't hijack his entire identity, a man who feels deeply but responds intentionally, a man who can hold intensity without exploding and hold silence without collapsing into insecurity. That level of inner regulation is rare, and because it's rare, it's deeply attractive. Younger women are surrounded by emotional volatility. They see it in men who get jealous over small things, who panic when communication slows down, who lash out when they feel insecure, who crumble when things don't go their way. They've experienced conversations that turn into arguments within seconds. They've witnessed mood swings, unpredictable reactions, and impulsive decisions. This emotional instability exhausts them, it drains them, it makes them feel like they have to parent the man instead of connect with him. So, when they meet a man who doesn't react impulsively, who pauses, processes, and chooses his response, they feel a shift. It's as if the emotional chaos they've grown used to finally settles, their body relaxes, their defenses lower. Their attraction heightens because emotional control doesn't just create stability, it creates desire. There is something incredibly powerful about a man who can stay centered during emotional intensity, not because he shuts down, but because he stays present. When a woman brings emotion, whether it's stress, confusion, or fear, most men respond from their own emotional wounds. They take it personally, they get defensive, they withdraw, they panic. But a man with emotional control listens differently. He listens without reacting. He sees the emotion behind the words. He understands that her expression is not an attack. It's a need, a fear, a truth-seeking space. And that ability to hold emotional space without judgment turns him into the kind of man she can open up to. That opening is what creates the emotional intimacy younger women crave, but rarely find. Emotional control also shows up in small moments. The way he speaks when he's frustrated, the way he handles disappointment, the way he manages conflict without turning it into a battlefield, the way he apologizes not from weakness but from awareness. These small behaviors reveal the architecture of his inner world. They show maturity, they show discipline, they show leadership, and leadership in emotions is one of the strongest masculine traits a woman responds to instinctively. Let's talk about something most men never realize. Emotional control is deeply sensual. When a man doesn't rush, doesn't force, doesn't react, he creates a slow, burning tension. He shows patience, he allows the moment to unfold instead of trying to dominate it. This kind of patience is erotic because it signals confidence. It signals, I'm not afraid of my emotions, and I'm not afraid of yours. Women feel safe letting their guard down around a man like this. They feel safe expressing desire. They feel safe leaning into softness. Emotional control unlocks feminine energy, and feminine energy amplifies attraction. There's another layer to this. Emotional control is not just about how a man manages conflict, it's about how he manages himself. A man with emotional mastery knows how to redirect his energy. He doesn't waste it on arguments that don't matter. He doesn't pour it into proving himself to people who can't see his value. He doesn't attach his identity to temporary emotions. He has learned that feelings are signals, not instructions, and that understanding elevates him above the emotional impulsiveness that defines so much of modern dating culture. That elevation is felt by every woman he interacts with, especially younger women who crave guidance, grounding, and emotional consistency. Younger women aren't looking for a perfect man, they're looking for a regulated man, a man who can navigate intensity without creating instability, a man who can offer clarity without control, a man who can remain calm without becoming distant, and when they find him, the attraction isn't momentary, it's lasting. Because emotional control is not just a trait, it's a presence, and presence is unforgettable. If there is one truth to take from this, it is this: emotional control doesn't make you less masculine. It makes you irresistible. When we talk about contrast, most people immediately think of superficial differences, age, lifestyle, experience, maturity. But the contrast that pulls a younger woman toward an older man is far deeper than any of that. It's not about the number of years he has lived, it's about the distance between her inner world and his. It's the emotional, psychological, and spiritual contrast that creates attraction, curiosity, and desire. A younger woman often carries a certain level of inner chaos uncertainty about who she is, pressure to prove herself, fear of being misunderstood, and the emotional intensity that comes with youth. When she meets a man whose energy is steady rather than reactive, who is grounded rather than overwhelmed, her entire nervous system experiences something unfamiliar. That unfamiliarity is what draws her closer. It's the contrast between her turbulence and his calm that becomes magnetic. This contrast is not something he tries to create. It is not a performance. It is a natural outcome of growth, hardship, emotional maturity, and self-awareness. The older man has usually lived through the fires she is just beginning to understand. He has been burnt by impulsiveness. He has been humbled by life. He has learned that not everything deserves a reaction, and not every moment requires intensity. And while she may still be navigating identity, relationships, emotions, and self-worth, he has reached a point where he doesn't question himself every day. That clarity stands out to her. She feels the difference instantly. Younger men often mirror her energy, high highs, low lows, intensity without direction, passion without purpose. But when she encounters a man who carries stillness within himself, a man who doesn't swing between emotional extremes, she feels a contrast that both challenges and comforts her. She senses that he won't collapse under emotional pressure. She senses that he won't become needy or clingy if he likes her. She senses that he won't attempt to control her just because he feels insecure, and this sense is powerful. Because younger women are used to men who need them, they are not used to men who choose them. That contrast, being chosen, not needed, is one of the deepest psychological pulls she will ever feel. A younger woman often finds herself in connections where she becomes responsible for regulating the man's emotions, soothing his fears, or filling his insecurities. But when she meets a man who self-regulates, who doesn't project his internal battles onto her, she feels free. And that freedom becomes attraction. There's also the contrast of pace. Younger women are often surrounded by men who rush everything, rushing intimacy, rushing decisions, rushing emotional closeness. It comes from inexperience and fear. But a man who has lived long enough to trust timing, who understands that depth takes time and connection cannot be rushed, creates a slower, more intentional dynamic. That slower pace becomes seductive. It creates anticipation. It builds tension. It signals confidence. And confidence, when it's quiet and authentic, is one of the strongest feminine triggers. Another important aspect of contrast is emotional presence. Younger women often feel emotionally overstimulated in modern dating, ghosting, mixed signals, emotional games, hot hand, cold behavior. So when she meets a man who is consistent, who communicates clearly, who doesn't play games, it feels different. It feels refreshing. It feels rare. She finds herself drawn toward the man who doesn't need chaos to feel alive. The stability he brings doesn't bore her, it anchors her, and the depth of this contrast extends further. He listens differently, he responds differently, he approaches conflict differently, he approaches intimacy differently. His approach to life itself is different. She senses a wisdom she doesn't yet have but wants to learn from. Not because she's inferior, but because he has simply lived longer in his own mind, wrestled with his own limitations, and come out the other side with more clarity. That clarity is attractive because it gives her something to lean into. This doesn't mean she wants a father figure or someone to control her. She wants a partner who elevates her, someone who doesn't mirror her confusion but steadies it, someone who doesn't amplify her insecurities but dissolves them. Someone who doesn't need her to regulate him emotionally, but who creates the emotional space for her to explore her own growth safely. That's the deep psychological contrast that builds attraction over time. When a younger woman says she's attracted to an older man, what she's describing is the difference between temporary excitement and long-term emotional fulfillment. She's describing the difference between chaos and clarity, between instability and assurance, between noise and stillness. It's the contrast that teaches her, grounds her, and expands her. And here is the truth worth remembering: contrast doesn't make you desirable. It reveals what was already powerful within you. When we talk about a man choosing rather than chasing, we're talking about a psychological shift that completely changes how a woman, especially a younger woman, experiences him. Most people think this is about playing hard to get or pretending to be unavailable, but that's not what this is. This is about the difference between a man who operates from insecurity and a man who operates from clarity. The man who chooses is grounded in who he is. He knows what he stands for, what he will tolerate, what he wants, and what he refuses to entertain. The man who chases is driven by fear, fear of missing out, fear of losing her, fear of not being enough. And fear is never attractive. It never has been. Younger women are used to men who pursue them desperately. Men who seek their attention, approval, and validation. Men who try to impress them with what they have rather than who they are. Men who think proximity equals connection and speed equals intimacy. What they rarely encounter is a man who evaluates. A man who observes, a man who takes his time to decide if she aligns with his values, his direction, and his emotional standards. When a man carries this kind of self-selection energy, he creates a sense of intrigue, a sense of respect, and eventually a sense of desire. She recognizes that he is not available to just anyone, and that scarcity rooted in standards, not games, is what makes him valuable. The reason younger women respond so strongly to this dynamic is because it feels profoundly different from their usual experiences. Younger men often behave as if being attracted to a woman automatically means she is the right person for them. They attach quickly and intensely, making the woman responsible for their emotional security. But an older man, or a more mature man, has lived long enough to understand that not every connection is worth pursuing, not every spark is sustainable, and not every desire deserves action. He chooses with intentionality, and when he chooses, it carries weight because it wasn't done in desperation. There's also a psychological element here that many men overlook. When a woman feels chased, she feels pressure. She feels expectation. She feels like she owes something in return for his pursuit, his attention, his time, his emotional investment. But when a woman feels chosen, she feels valued, not because she filled a void in him, but because someone who doesn't need has still recognized her worth. That distinction is subtle but deeply meaningful. It changes the entire emotional tone of the connection. A man who chooses over chasing also has a quieter confidence. It's not loud, it's not boastful, and it's not performative. It is the kind of confidence that comes from self-respect. He understands that a relationship is not a reward. It's a partnership, and he only enters partnerships that uplift him rather than drain him. Younger women pick up on this instinctively. They sense that he will not lose his identity in the relationship. They sense that he will not become overly dependent on their affection. They sense that he maintains a strong relationship with himself, and that self-relationship is the foundation of his desirability. Another important layer is the dynamic of emotional independence. The man who chases is seeking something outside himself to feel whole. The man who chooses already feels whole, and he is simply looking for alignment. When a younger woman encounters a man who does not cling, does not overinvest prematurely, and does not collapse emotionally when things don't go his way, she feels safe. Not safe in the sense of being protected physically, but safe as in free to express herself authentically. There is no pressure to perform, no pressure to accelerate intimacy, no pressure to meet his emotional needs instantly. His steadiness gives her room to breathe, and that freedom becomes attraction. She also respects him more. A man who chooses sets boundaries. He doesn't give all his time to someone he just met. He doesn't pour energy into chaotic or inconsistent behavior. He doesn't fall for drama disguised as passion. This boundary setting communicates that he values his peace, his time, and his emotional well-being. Younger women, who often deal with partners who lack these boundaries, feel drawn to a man who can differentiate between desire and discipline. And let's not ignore the feminine response here. When a woman senses that she isn't being chased, but invited, that she isn't being pursued blindly, but selected intentionally, her attraction shifts from curiosity to investment. She begins to see him as a prize, not just an option. She starts reciprocating, initiating, and showing interest, not because she's trying to win him, but because she feels honored by his self-assured presence. The truth is simple. Chasing comes from emptiness, choosing comes from strength, and women, especially younger women, are far more drawn to a man who leads with strength. A man who doesn't try to possess her, but allows the connection to grow naturally because he has nothing to prove. A man who chooses teaches her one thing: love isn't valuable when it is desperate. It becomes valuable when it is deliberate. When we talk about purpose, depth, and patience creating desire, we're talking about the very foundation of mature masculine energy that younger women often find themselves magnetically drawn toward without fully understanding why. A younger woman isn't just responding to how a man looks or how he sounds. She's responding to the architecture of his inner world. And when that inner world is organized, when it has direction, when it carries a sense of meaning, she feels something she rarely feels with men her own age: emotional safety combined with sexual tension. That combination is incredibly powerful. Purpose is not about career, money, or ambition alone. Purpose is the sense that a man is moving towards something outside of the relationship. He is not trying to make a woman the center of his identity. He is not seeking meaning solely through attachment. He has goals, structure, and a personal mission that defines him beyond romance. Younger women feel this instinctively, the difference between a man who wants her because he is lonely and a man who wants her because she complements his life, not replaces it. The man who lives with purpose is not easily swayed, not easily distracted, and not easily destabilized. That stability is part of what makes him so desirable. Depth is equally important. Depth is the ability to understand emotions without drowning in them. It's the ability to hold conversations that go beyond surface level attraction. A man with depth has reflected on his life, his past, his mistakes, and his desires. He understands his shadow and his light. He doesn't pretend to be perfect, but he also doesn't let his imperfections turn him into a victim. Younger women find this deeply attractive because depth is something they often crave but rarely find. They are constantly surrounded by shallow interactions, half-hearted connections, and emotional immaturity disguised as passion. So, when a man speaks from a place of lived experience, self awareness, and emotional intelligence, she feels seen, not just admired. Then comes patience, the rarest trait in modern dating. Patience in a man communicates emotional control, self confidence, and an understanding of timing. Younger women are used to urgency, pressure, and acceleration. Many men push too fast, rushing intimacy, rushing commitment, rushing emotional closeness because they fear losing her. But a patient man does not fear loss. He understands that what is aligned will grow and what is not aligned will fall away. His patience is not passivity, it is presence. It signals that he is not chasing the outcome, he is building the connection. This patience has a profound effect on a younger woman. It calms her, it slows her down, it allows her to feel safe leaning into the connection without feeling like she's being cornered or claimed. Patience creates space, and space creates desire. When a man is patient, he gives her time to open up emotionally, physically, and psychologically at her natural pace. He allows authenticity to lead instead of pressure, and because he is not rushing, she feels valued rather than used. Purpose, depth, and patience also work together to create a specific type of masculine presence, one that is subtle, steady, and unmistakably powerful. This presence is what makes younger women feel drawn to him, even when they don't understand why. They sense that he is not trying to impress them. He is not trying to win them. He is not trying to manipulate them. He simply exists in a state of alignment with himself, and that self-alignment becomes attractive. It becomes the quiet gravity that pulls her closer. A man with purpose doesn't revolve around her. A man with depth doesn't need superficial validation. A man with patience doesn't break under pressure. Younger women respond to this combination because it gives them a new experience, an experience of emotional maturity, consistency, and masculine confidence that makes them feel both grounded and excited. She feels like she can be feminine, expressive, emotional, and vulnerable without being judged or overwhelmed. She can lean into him without losing herself, and this is the part most men don't realize. The desire she feels for him is not just emotional, it's psychological and physical. His purpose gives her certainty, his depth gives her connection, his patience gives her safety. Together, they create an environment where her attraction grows naturally without being forced. This is why she remembers him. This is why she invests in him. This is why she trusts him. The truth is simple. A man who carries purpose, depth, and patience doesn't chase attraction, he inspires it.